Hello everyone, this is Carolina Diamond, Epiphany of Change, Dr. Rogers, coming to speak to you today on a situation that really speaks on the state of our nation as of today. There was an incident at Richfield High School, I think it's Richfield High School in Minnesota. And there were at least 40 kids who, because they owed more than $15 on their lunch tab, their food, their hot food was taken off their plates and they were humiliated in front of the other students at the school in the cafeteria. Now, school officials do agree that what they did was wrong. They said it was inappropriate. The superintendent apologized to the students at the school. They called all the kids together and they apologized to the kids. But ultimately what happened, one of the people that work in the cafeteria, she looked at their accounts and saw that they were behind on their, I guess you can say, lunch bill. So they took it upon themselves to go in front of everyone, take their meals off their trays and give them some cheap little cold food. They never said what that cold food was. I'm assuming it was a sandwich or some fruit or cereal or something. I don't know. But they punished these kids for not being able to pay that bill. So if they were $15 or more in debt on their lunch bill, then their food was taken off their trays in front of everyone and it was thrown in the trash. So this happened to at least 40 students. And if I'm not mistaken, this just happened on Monday. Now, I saw a report back in September that said that they weren't having any problems with the schools in Minnesota with the, I think they call it shame. I had to go back and actually find the name for it. But where they shame the kids that aren't able to pay for their meals. Number one, how are you holding these kids responsible for their parents' finances? I mean, it didn't make sense. So when I see this happening in Minnesota and them actually taking food off these kids' plates and embarrassing them in front of everybody, you have to ask yourself, what is this country coming to? Are we that pressed that we are actually willing to interrupt these kids' learning? Because you know you're not going to do well in school. You're not going to be paying attention. You're not going to be doing the things that you need to do if you're hungry. And you have growing kids here. I can't. So, what the article says, and it was posted on today. On Monday, during a couple of lunch periods at Richfield High School, a policy was enforced in the wrong way. You think? Our nutrition staff inaccurately and inappropriately implemented alternate lunch. As many as 40 students in the lunch line had their hot lunches taken away off their trays, thrown in the trash, and replaced with a cold lunch when a lunchroom staff member at the register saw that they had an outstanding lunch debt of more than $15. The good thing I would say about this is that the school didn't try to hide it and they actually fessed up to what happened. So that's definitely a good thing, because a lot of times in these situations, people don't want to admit to their wrongs. But the fact that it did happen, and you can't take that situation back, those kids being embarrassed, everybody knowing that they couldn't afford their lunch, the gossip and rumors going around the school about what happened, you can't take that back. You can't take that experience back. So what do you do about it? You make sure they get hot lunches, but wow. June 20th, 2019, this year, U.S. Senator Tina Smith and also U.S. Representative Omar, they introduced the No Shame at School Act. This was to prohibit schools from shaming students who are unable to pay for their lunch meals or who have outstanding debt. Additionally, the measure requires schools to certify a child's unpaid meal fees and authorizes the federal government to reimburse the meals for up to 90 days. Now, the fact that someone even had to introduce a No Shame at School Act to let adults know that you don't go and shame kids whenever they can't pay for a meal, that's a problem in itself. All by itself. It doesn't need any help. So the fact that they had to get that done, felt the need to get that done. And they introduced this in 2019, but there were other people that were actually a part of this, like way before, that were like the founders at the very beginning. But these ladies actually helped get it pushed through. So what Senator Smith said is that everyone knows you can't learn or perform well when you're hungry. We need to support students in Minnesota and across the country by ensuring that kids are not humiliated because of their inability to pay for lunch. The other thing that Smith said was lunch shaming can stigmatize low-income students and hurt their ability to learn. Exactly. Our bill will leave children out of it and focus on making sure school districts and the federal government work together to ensure kids are set up to succeed. Across the country, students whose families are struggling to afford school meals are being singled out and humiliated at lunchtime. These students are subjected to various shaming practices. Some have been literally branded with stamps. Others are given cheaper, less appetizing meals than the other students. So this is where we're at. Y'all, this thing has me so upset. So, I don't know if you guys remember Philando Castile. He was a young man that was killed by the police officer when the police officer came up to his car, and Philando and his girlfriend, and I think the girlfriend's daughter, was in the back seat. And the police asked for his license and registration, and he was trying to get it. And he also let the officer know that he had a gun. And whenever he told the officer that, the officer was like, good, don't reach for it. But he's still trying to get his license and registration. And the police fired 4 to 7 shots and killed him on the spot with his girlfriend and the little girl in the car. That's Philando Castile. Well, I don't know if you guys remember, he was a cafeteria worker. Not only was he a cafeteria worker, but he was the supervisor of the cafeteria that he worked in. And Castile, even though he knew that there were rules in the school that people had to pay for their meals and stuff, Castile made it a point to go and use his money to go and make sure that the kids that didn't have the money to eat still ate, and he paid for their meals. So upon his death, his mom kept that same energy. She kept things going. So because her son was a cafeteria worker and she knew that he was doing this for the kids, she felt like she needed to keep that going because that was part of Philando's legacy. So what his mom did was she gave Robbinsdale, I want to make sure I get the name of the school right. She gave Robbinsdale Cooper High School in New Hope, Minnesota, right down the road from this other school. She gave $8,000 to settle the students' lunch debts in honor of her son. Yeah. And all you can do is smile about it, because I know her son is smiling about it. Also, the local community, they honored his legacy by creating a crowdfunding campaign that raised more than $178,000, and that money was donated as well. So the article goes on to say that Philando was a school supervisor in the cafeteria. He knew all of the students by name. Philando's mother said that we're one of the richest countries on this planet, and she doesn't think that any child should go hungry. No child should be deprived of eating a healthy meal. We need something to ensure that our kids are taken care of. That's what Philando stood for, taking care of those kids. But if our kids are to have a shot at success, don't they need to be in an environment that's welcoming, that makes them feel safe, an environment that looks out for them and make them feel like they belong? Or maybe I'm asking too much. I don't know. Hey. But while we're sitting here and we're talking about injustices and fairness and equal treatment, equality, we have to remember that it doesn't just stop in the legal system. Everyone deserves the right to be treated fairly. Everyone deserves the right to be treated like a human being and never to be left to feel like they're less than. And taking food out of a child's plate, they have their plate in their hands, and you're taking food off their plate, and these kids see you take that food that they were ready to eat and you throw it in the trash in front of their faces. What do you think you're teaching these kids? And these other kids are watching. See, we're responsible for shaping and helping to mold their beliefs and who they become as adults. So what do you think you're teaching these kids? That's what I want to know. I guess we'll find out when they get older. So this is Carolina Diamond, Epiphany of Change, bringing you this brief information because community matters. Oh man, guys, yeah, this one got me. This one, yeah, it got me. But until next time, guys, be fair, be just, and be you. Bye.